I'm learning that some people are still playing through the game, so let me just say, if you're on this video, you signed the "if I'm spoiled, I'm spoiled" waiver. That is all. Monster Hunter Wild's title exclusive mechanic is the wounding system, which sees monsters' parts be exposed, receive more damage when struck, and cause a damage reaction when enough damage has been dealt. Wounds show up as glowing red marks on the monster's body while you're in focus mode. However, players can opt to break these wounds a different way by utilizing the new Focus Strike feature that showcases a unique animation for the weapon type before completely destroying the wound. But sometimes, you might see glowing marks on a monster's part that hasn't been wounded. The game doesn't have a designated name for these, so I decided to call them Special Focus Strike Points, or Special Wounds. This isn't the official name, this is just what I'm working with. How these special wounds work is that certain monster attacks will have a wound mark that appears during or after the attack that appears as a pinkish glow on a particular part. If you manage to focus strike this glowing part, the monster will be left in a pseudo-toppled state. This is a huge window of opportunity to perform any high-risk behavior. Beware, if you were to be hit by one of these special wound attacks, they are designed to linger for the amount of time it would take for you to recover from the attack. Once you successfully manage to focus strike a special wound, it, along with other special wounds, will go on a cooldown that lasts for what I'm estimating to be 2.5 to 3 minutes. This is not the case for every monster, but a strong majority of them. Luckily for you guys, I subjected myself to endless torment in order to compile all special wounds I could find in the game. So far. Heads up though, the monsters who do not have a special wound as far as I'm aware are Chemitress, Lalabarina, Suwu, Yonkutku, and Gormagala. I also chose to leave out Guardian Arkveld and Zoshia as they are story limited and not replayable unless you respond to someone's SOS flare, so unless they come out as events later, I won't be covering them in this video. We're kicking this list off with Chatacabra. Chatacabra has an arm slam attack that can be done 1 to 2 times. When enraged, Chatacabra has the option to perform a powerful slam that has a long windup after either 1 or 2 arm slams. This window is long enough to challenge with an offset, but if you allow the attack to go through, it will remain on its belly and have its tongue sticking out. If you focus strike the tongue, Chatacabra will freak out while swatting at its tongue. Next up is Congalala. When standing behind Congalala, it can take on a bracing posture before ripping a fat draw stainer. Once finished, it will have a special wound directly in its chocolate highway. Moving on to my second favorite monster in this game, Balahara, who actually has 2 special wounds. The first is visible after any of its spit attacks with the exception of the oil bomb. This means when it shoots a singular glob, as well as when it fires the stream, both on ground and while submerged. The other is much harder to land successfully without the use of a gun. Balahara has a tunneling attack sequence where it jumps at you repeatedly before spitting at you. During its jump, you can only focus strike it out of the air for a pseudo topple. I don't have footage of it working successfully because I almost tore my fro out with a number of attempts, but you'll just have to trust me, okay? Have I ever led you astray? Anyway, Doshaguma is up next. This attack sees Doshaguma stand on its hind legs for a brief duration before attacking. During this time, a special wound will appear near its no-no zone. When struck, it will cause a pseudo topple. This can be done whether it is enraged or not. By the way, you can tell a monster is enraged when the eye icon is red on the minimap. The agitated tooltip appears, or the monster has visible breath coming out of its mouth. Of all the monsters present in Wilds, Uth Duna is my absolute favorite. For context, Uth Duna has an altered state, which is its water veil. One of Uth Duna's signature attacks is its whale-like body slam. Whether base state, enraged, and/or altered, it will slam its body in the ground similar to a whale breaching, and a special wound will appear on its head after the recovery. This will cause Uth Duna to fall back a hefty distance, so be careful. Another thing, it has two different follow-ups. It can either jump again with a faster falling animation, or, depending on the distance from the player, will slide around and perform a faster belly slam. Sixth on the list is Rompopolo. It has an altered state where its body is inflated. Regardless of whether it is inflated or not, it has a claw stabbing combo that leads into one of its two attacks with a special wound. The first is a tongue attack that pumps gas into the area its tongue lands to cause explosions. During the entire attack animation, it will have a special wound that can be struck for a topple. The other is a toxic breath cone attack that mirrors the previous action. To remove its altered state, you would need to deal enough damage to the head, torso, and tail to deflate Rompopolo. Once Rompopolo is deflated, it will remain so for a short amount of time before reinflating itself. While it is attempting to reinflate, it will have a special wound on its head. Last thing of importance, if you do not deflate all of its parts and it enrages, it will immediately inflate those parts. Rey Dau is a fairly simple monster. The only special wounds it has are available after strong electric attacks, one of which is its charged laser while on the ground. In high rank, it can fire this beam twice before opening to reveal it is susceptible to a focus strike. The other is its popular lightning nuke, where it flies in the sky before marking a spot to obliterate. After landing, it will have a special wound that lasts for quite some time. Be warned, while it can use these attacks in rapid succession, if you successfully focus strike the part, all of these attacks will go on cooldown. Next is Nerscylla. One of its most infamous attacks is when it clamps its long-reaching jaws, which are either extremely telegraphed or done as a response to webbing the hunter or putting them to sleep. Once the attack is finished, it will be ready to focus strike and cause a pseudo topple. Hirabami, like Balahara, has a special wound available after it uses its ice breath attacks. This can either be its solo ice spit or triple ice spit. Once affected, it will be toppled out of the air. Up next is my greatest disappointment, Discount Rajan. Upon becoming enraged, Ajarakan will enter what I believe is an altered state where it takes on a molten appearance. During Enrage, it has access to its strongest attack, which sees it beat its tail against its back twice before causing a tremor status in the area in front of it, after which it will rip its hands out of the ground and cause an explosive wave to travel forward. Once its attack is finished, it can be focus struck to cause a knockdown. The third of the Apex, New Udra. Whether base state or enraged, it has a highly telegraphed all tentacles on deck slam attack that is followed up by a slower, more telegraphed slam. Afterward, it will have a special wound on its head. Honestly, I think it should have had one on the fire wave, that long-reaching, super wide, deceptively visual fire sweep. You know what I'm talking about, but maybe that's just me. We're entering Guardian territory right now, and as a precursor, Guardian monsters begin in an altered state where their attacks have different properties, such as Wilk explosions. Once enough wounds have been broken, they will lose their altered state and be toppled as a result. Due to this, certain attacks that would have special wounds will no longer show until they restore their Wilk status. With that said, Guardian Doshaguma has 3 special wounds. One attack sees it scrape its claws against the ground, causing an explosion as it travels forward. Afterward, whichever foreleg it used to perform the attack will have a special wound on it. The second attack is a 2-part attack. It will stand on its hind legs, splashing out globs that will cause flinch and defense down. After it travels the required distance to you, it will slam its claw into the ground twice, with the last slam having a special wound on the respective foreleg. This final attack is only possible during Enrage, and will have Doshaguma stand on its hind legs and splash out defense down droplets while walking toward you. With this attack, however, it will try to slam both forelegs into you and cause a huge explosion. While it's moving to slam its forelegs, it will have special wounds during the attack. In my experience, I was having trouble catching these special wounds with regular weapons and without Rocksteady Mantle. However, a gun made this pretty easy. The next Guardian is Rathalos. I know, Guardian Rathalos before regular Rathalos. How could this be? Blame the story, I don't know, I'm going in order of the icons. So anyway, Rathalos has 2 special wounds, both on its aerial slam attacks. One slam attack is the classic Rathalos foot dive, where it slams down and holds a pose for a bit. When it's all wilked up, this slam will have a follow-up explosion in the area. Once the explosion goes off, it has a special wound on its leg for a small amount of time. The other attack is the altered foot dive, where it goes high up in the air, zooming out the camera and disappearing off screen before slamming the ground and causing a bigger explosion. I tried to see if its breath attacks will cause a special wound to appear, but I wasn't having much luck with that. If you see it and you know, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Due to the order of the icons, we're going to take a break from the Guardians real quick and finish up the Apexes. Jin Dahaad is here with the most special wounds in the game. After any Ice Breath attack, even its point blank nuke, its head will have a special wound. Watch out though, Jin's head is high up during certain attacks, so your timing has to be immaculate. Jin's Sapphire Star Trial version will have a special wound on its chest. The initial hit will not stagger Jin, but the breaking of the wound will. This same chest-related special wound appears when it uses its Ice Gas attack. The other special wounds come from its toppled state. During a topple, its head, hindquarters, and tail will have special wounds that will always appear until the part is broken the first time. Back to a Guardian, Ebony Odo is the reason this video took so long next to me not wanting to spoil anyone. Odogaron has almost as many special wounds as Jin Dahaad. Its Flinching Claw Swipe has a special wound that lingers for literally a second. Its Drifting Claw has a special wound during the attack but disappears just as quickly. Both its tail attacks have special wounds that are active during the animation, where one is a flip and the other is a radial sweep. I'm not sure if its Bite has one. The dragon element obscures it. I tried, but Jesus Christ Lord Almighty, I was running out of motivation, me buckos. Last attack is its Claw Slam that has an explosion. This attack has the longest duration as it envelops its entire recovery animation. I'm just gonna play the clips because typing this out is like literally giving me flashbacks. Zhu Wu has no special wounds, but did you know? If you manage to offset or flinch it during the animation where it's going to attack with its mouth, you can make it fall over and break its mouth for a guaranteed fang. Almost there to completion. Gypceros has a single special wound which is present during the windup for its flash attack. While it's clicking its head, you can focus strike it for a pseudo topple. This is not to be confused with other flash attacks where it is charging while moving. Bad news is, once the head is fully broken, this special wound will no longer be available. Rathian also has one special wound, but that wound is present on all its fireball attacks. Whether it's on the ground, in the air, or using the super fireball, these breath attacks leave it vulnerable for a brief period. Once you break one of these special wounds from any breath attack, all special wounds for each fireball will go on cooldown. The final guardian, Fulgur Anjanath, has some rather tricky special wounds. One of its attacks sees it drag its mouth across the ground, producing a chain of Wilk explosions. Afterward, its head will have a special wound. However, this special wound can be completely bypassed when it decides to use one of its follow-up attacks. One follow-up is a side bite with an electric face slam, while the other will briefly flash the special wound before it uses 2 extra bites. A third option I've seen it do is the electric face drag. Unfortunately, neither of these have a special wound afterward. Another special wound will come after its dive bomb attack. Once finished, it will have a special wound for the entire recovery animation. What makes this wound so great is that it doesn't go on cooldown until you knock the Wilk state off. That could be a bug, or the developers are being nice about it. I'm not really sure, but don't take it to a grain of salt until the patches come out. The more frustrating special wound is when it does a traveling side bite where the wound is available to strike during its travel but disappears as it attacks. This is probably more suited for ranged weapons, as it is quite fast and high for a Blade Master weapon to hit reliably. Sometimes, as a follow-up to certain attacks, Anjanath will spit a singular glob of electric snot toward the player. After this spit, it will have a recovery animation, where it has a special wound available the entire way through. Next up is my least favorite monster in the entire series, Rathalos. This stupid creature received an upgrade in this game and has somehow become more annoying and yet easier to take down. Sure, the head may not break anymore, but wounds in this game are broken against flying monsters. Speaking of wounds, all of Rathalos' advanced fire attacks have special wounds. This means no fireballs, by the way. Its traditional flame cone, Rise linear flame sweep, and new fire combo all share a special wound that pseudo topples him when finished. This rule doesn't apply to Rathalos' aerial cone when it is enraged, as it will have a follow-up attack which leaves you either a small window or none at all. Gravios actually has more special wounds than I thought, as well as part break interferences. After performing its rolling attack, its back will be presented with a special wound during the recovery animation. All of Gravios' fire beam attacks have a special wound on the head after use, but if you focus strike one, they all go on cooldown. Standing behind Gravios will prompt it to use a swinging tail slap. Once finished, the tail will have a special wound that lingers for a while. If you sever its tail, this special wound is no longer able to appear. Another Gravios ability is its gas attacks, of which it has 3. Fire, Sleep, and the newly added Poison. Which makes sense since it was just a grown-up Basarios, so why could they poison and this one can't? Anyway, these attacks all have special wounds after they are completed, but the fire gas has a caveat. Once you break the belly, it will no longer have a special wound, but the other 2 gases will. Initially, I didn't think Blonganga had a special wound, but I persisted and found it. Tokuda's team has me a little concerned because why do the monkeys all have wounds in their asshole? When Blonganga does its ice breath attack, its methane vent will have a special wound. These poor monkeys. Finally on the last monster. Arkveld has an interesting mechanic with its chain blades that has a direct link to its special wounds. You could go on an entire hunt without Arkveld accessing its dragon element. If Arkveld manages to land enough chain blade attacks on you or a monster, it will then enter its altered state. You can tell it's charging up whenever you get hit when the faint blue glow shines in its chain blades. After becoming empowered, its special wounds will be visible during its enraged state and only show up sometimes. If you deal enough damage to a chain blade, it will flinch Arkveld and cancel the power up in that chain blade. Canceling both will return it to its base state with a topple. I've noticed that, after 5 hunts spanning 30 minutes, canceling one of these chains will prevent any special wounds from occurring, even if I haven't broken one yet. Now onto the actual attacks. The easiest and most consistent special wound Arkveld has is its explosive wave attack. After it finishes, the chain blades will whip around and you can focus strike it for a pseudo topple. The less consistent ones are the double chain slam, where it may or may not show up, and the 3-hit sweep, where it is a blink and you'll miss it style hitbox. I hate this monster with all my soul, it sucks dirt, but I tried my best to face tank its mechanics. If there's anything I missed regarding its mechanics, or maybe even another special wound, please let me know. I spent hours looking at it and I can't seem to find much else. One last special wound to talk about. Pins. When you get pinned by the monster, you're not able to move until after you've been set to the ground. This is true for some monsters, but there are a select few who require you to stab your way out. Those being Ajarakan, New Udra, and Arkveld. Whenever you're grabbed by one of them, you have the option to stab or use your slinger. You could flash your way out, but if you have a lethal slinger ammo equipped, you could simply shoot the monster in the highlighted zone and you will be dropped. And that's the end of that. Hopefully this helps you perform better and figure out how you want to tackle certain hunts. I'm personally not a fan of the game or the wound system, but it would be beneath me to not provide you with the tools and information for you to succeed should you want it. I have 2 more discussion videos and 2 more educational videos in the works, and I'm pushing myself to deliver it in the best way I possibly can. This editing choice goes out to all the dishwashers and second monitor viewers out there whom I unfortunately neglected in my items interactions video. I have you all from this point forward, I promise. Anyway, until next time.